Lascia and Corla. On the motion to opt in to the regulation establishing the Asylum, Migration and Integration Fund, we should be clear about what we are discussing. This is a motion to give our assent to a package of nearly €12 billion that will underpin the implementation of the EU Migration Pact. That was a pact with which we in the Labour Party, amongst others, have significant difficulties. There will be measures funded from this money. One of the objectives mentioned in the regulation is promoting and contributing to the effective integration and social inclusion of migrants. Previous iterations of the AMIF have played an important part in funding integration programmes and supports for international protection applicants. But we should be very clear-eyed about this motion and the regulation behind it, that it arises from a deeply flawed EU Migration Pact. We, the Labour Party, fully endorsed the need for a cross-EU approach to migration and migration policy, but we had strong differences with elements of this pact. In particular, we felt that the pact would see an introduction of an asylum procedure which does not respect basic rights or contain safeguards for vulnerable applicants. It could certainly lead to a worsening in conditions in both reception and detention centres and impacting directly on the dignity of human life and on human rights. A pact, as we know, is a result of a move to the right in EU's migration policy, one that risks undermining the right to claim asylum itself. And in recent weeks, unfortunately, we've seen this government attempt a similar move, appealing to fears and prejudices rather than putting forward a positive case for migration or focusing on working towards a system that is both fair, effective and humane. We've seen a concerted government effort of negative messaging, symbolic exclusion and deterrence theatre on migration and the system of international protection. We've seen concerns raised that the government's legislation to transpose the pact actually goes further than it needs to. There is a risk that in their efforts to follow populist rhetoric with ill-thought-through rushed policy, the government goes through the same process the EU already has and arrives at a position where asylum is undermined and those with valid claims see their rights curtailed. What's more, as ministers fall over each other to signal on who can follow the lead of the UK government with the greatest enthusiasm, all they are doing is feeding into the othering of migrants in Ireland. That puts people at greater risk of attack and it undermines community solidarity. If we lose that community cohesion, if we lose our reputation as a welcoming, open society, that is what will have real negative impacts. We all know how much Ireland relies on workers from abroad to support our infrastructure and housing investment plans and FDI and MNC sectors, hospitality and in particular our health and social care systems. When leaders choose not to lead but to cynically play politics on this issue, it puts all of that at risk. This government should choose to lead. I must tell them that their actions are having a very real impact. Most recently, 2 days ago, I had a young woman who came to this country 8 years ago, fleeing persecution for being a member of the LGBTQI community in her home country. She came here, she worked, she studied, she worked. She fell ill and is currently in receipt of illness benefit while she goes through very serious medical treatment. She will, with the right help and support, get through that treatment and return to work. She's a young woman with an awful lot to give. She's also a young woman with a letter to say that her status in this country is now in doubt and she may have to leave to return to the country of her persecution. That is an Ireland I did not think existed last year or the year before or the year before that, but it is certainly an Ireland of November 2025 and an Ireland that this government is shaping with their policies and their actions. This government should choose to lead, to proactively put forward a case for migration that not only acknowledges the positive impacts that it has had on this country, but also acknowledges the realities. That would be an approach that would recognise that immigration to this country is overwhelmingly regular migration with international protection accounting for 1 in 10 migrants. It would be an approach that would leave the tough guy posturing at the door and abandon mean-spirited efforts like the Minister's proposed changes to citizenship and family reunification rules. But we have little faith in the Labour Party, and I'm sure with others in opposition, that this approach will be taken given the actions and motions and direction this government is taking. You're bringing Ireland to a more dangerous, a more unsympathetic, a country with less compassion, and it's not the Ireland that I want to live in. Thank you.